Hello, I'm the CommanderZander. I remember it so that a stage critic doesn't have to. And neither should you. Well, it's Sunday, it means it's 90s media. And it's time to review yet another movie that took place in the 90s. I originally had Matilda on the list, and if you read my tweet, you saw the list. But I've decided to cross off Matilda and replace it with Bean the movie, which makes more sense since I've already reviewed Mr. Bean. Bean the movie took place in the late 90s, and this was the climactic way for Mr. Bean to go out, since his TV show was just about ending at that time. And what better way to introduce the character on a global basis than in the movies? The plot was interesting, and it was Mr. Bean being Mr. Bean. That's all I can say, but let's delve into the movie anyways. Here we go with Bean the movie. But first, credit for the movie goes to the, yes, you will find this hard to believe, the same people responsible for Barney's Great Adventure. PolyGram Filmed Entertainment. And no, this is not for monetary purposes, this is strictly for review. As we start with the Beetlejuice theme song, we see Mr. Bean shaving. Already, this looks like they took something out of the frickin' show. A working title, what? What the hell kind of a production name is a working title? You don't know the name of your production, so you just put working title? What a lazy production group! And in typical Bean fashion, he's shaving just about everything else with his shaver. In association with Tiger Aspect Films. Yes, the same people who are responsible for the Mr. Bean show are involved in this. What the? Apparently razors in the 90s were even safe to the touch. And by safe to the touch, I mean safe to the touch in just about everything, including your fucking tongue. We then cut to the Royal National Gallery where they're planning on firing Mr. Bean because he's the worst security guard in the history of mankind. Quite frankly, I don't blame them for making this decision. Just watch Mr. Bean in this scene right here.
I'll talk to the chairman and insist on Mr. Bean's immediate dismissal. Now then, back to the agenda. The Gramercy Gallery of California.
See, he did nothing. He's not even in this scene. That's why he's horrible.
Whistler's portrait of his mother from the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. It is quite simple. The most historic purchase.
That is
of an American gallery.
Whistler's mother. Who the fuck cares about this behemoth of a pilgrim mother? We then transition to the Gramercy Art Gallery, where they're about to receive said Whistler's mother painting. Their goal is to make their gallery, which conveniently is in LA, a historic one at that.
The unveiling will be in about 2 weeks, and you're all invited.
And guess who they hire, also out of England?
A scholar of great weight and substance to preside over the ceremony and stay on for a couple of months of lectures and seminars. Dr. Rosenblum, Dr. Kaplan.
Well, you probably figured it out. Why not fire Bean when you can just ship him off to LA and have America deal with Mr. Bean and his crazy bullshit?
Excellent.
Which is exactly what happens.
Fetch Mr. Bean, will you? We're about to find. Yes, Mr. Bean is the worst employee in the gallery.
And now you can see why. What kind of security guard sleeps on the job? Hey you! Get your coffee, why don't you? And your 8 hours of sleep. How the hell do you sleep on the job? I wonder why they're gonna fire Mr. Bean. Gee, there's a shock for you. And of course he's sleeping in Mr. Bean fashion. If you remember from the first episode, at the scene where he's at the church, this is how he slept. Just like that. And then immediately wakes up. Although in this case he doesn't. Alright, let's move on, shall we? This is the man that's his life is about to be ruined. Why? Because he's about to take in Mr. Bean and all the craziness that he possesses.
Jovi knows absolutely nothing about 19th century impressionism. Certainly hasn't mentioned it in any of his recent songs.
He, of course, is trying to find someone that knows what the crap they're talking about in regards to art. Might I consider Bomb... Oh, wait, that's right. He's dead at this point. Damn it! He would have been a really good option. So instead, we're reduced to Mr. Bean.
No. David's our curator. This is David's call. It's his decision, his responsibility. Ultimately, his neck.
Gee, way to put the pressure on your own employee, you stupid fool. After all, this is a fucking art gallery we're talking about. There's nothing more boring than an art gallery. Of course, the artist might find this amusing and abstract. But if you're not really into art, this is not really your thing.
This is the Royal National Gallery of England's top man. I thought you'd be very excited to have around, to learn from, and to talk.
Of course, he lives the typical family life. Lives with a wife and kids, living a modest family life, and meanwhile, Mr. Bean is shooting photos for some reason. Why is he shooting photos of himself?
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you to meet the world's most craziest person in the whole wide world.
That'd be great. Let's say there is a chart of the most intelligent people you've ever met in your life. Well, at number 1 with a bullet is Dr. Bean.
Do you even know who you're referring to? Why are you calling Mr. Bean as Dr. Bean? All he does is be a security guard, and even that's not very impressive. He's not much of a security guard to begin with. This guy is making the craziest mistake and thus wasting time on this movie. You know, he could have made the life easy. But no, he has to pick Mr. Bean, and thus the madness unfolds. Oh, by the way, Goth Girl.
Okay, so he's gonna look like Meatloaf's butt.
And what's with the triangular plate of M&M's? So random. But I will give him this. The room and the house itself is vibrant with colors. Whoever designed this house surely knew what they were doing. Or maybe it was by him, the artist, if you will. We see Mr. Bean about to take off on a plane to the United States of America, where the British invasion will return and rise from the dead after the Beatles' unpleasant demise. Mr. Bean finds a seat on the plane, and right off the bat you can see that this is going to rip off the one scene from Mr. Bean's Vacation or something like that. You know, where the scene where he went on a plane. I got a ticket, I got a golden ticket. Actually, no, it's just an ordinary plane ticket. I just like to rub it in because I'm a fucking weirdo. That is Mr. Bean. So once he makes his way to the States, he's being introduced by the man responsible for bringing him to the States.
I've never actually read anything you've written. Tell me, Doctor, what
That's because he hasn't written anything that's inspiring.
I sit in the corner.
Mr. Bean pretty much explains what he does.
The paintings.
that is brilliant.
Okay, you clearly don't understand what he's referring to. He looks at the paintings because he's a security guard. He's supposed to keep an eye on the paintings in case some idiot decides to steal it, but he sleeps on the job because he finds art boring. Mr. Bean is introduced to the headquarters in LA. That is the gallery.
You'd like to sign in, sir?
No, I'd much prefer, you know, scoping the place out to observe all this stuff because I'm not into art. I've just been hired because the London bastards fired me. By the way, chips and dips, Terrio. So he's introduced to the museum, but we don't have time for that. He's then... Okay, why is he in an amusement park? I thought he was supposed to observe art, not be in an amusement park. He's not even amused by this. This is boring as hell. Okay, I'm not impressed by this roller coaster ride. And this is fucking LA we're talking about. You know, if you want to go on an amusement park ride, there is one south of LA, like in Anaheim, called, oh, I don't know, Disneyland, perhaps? It's a wonderful place. And might I recommend Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. That was my favorite roller coaster going on, but that's besides the point. What does Mr. Bean do? He decides to make the roller coaster more entertaining, if you know what I mean, by sneaking into the computer system and hacking it. Oh great, whatever does this have to do with the fucking movie? Nothing! Oh, by the way, Clifford as a red bulldog. He clearly likes Georgia. Fasten your seatbelts, it's gonna be a nauseating ride. Okay, I don't see what he did here. It looks exactly the same as before. What the hell did you... Oh, sure, now they go jumping up and down because they're not wearing their seatbelts. What the hell difference does it make? What did he fucking do? He didn't do anything to change this crap. Oh, come on! You can't prove anything! So, you assume that Mr. Bean did it because he was the only one that came around a second time? You assume it's him? Haven't you heard the old phrase, innocent until proven guilty? You can't prove anything against Mr. Bean at this point. So why? And besides, it's not like he didn't change anything. It looks completely the same. Why didn't you go after the freaking idiots who decided not to put their seatbelts on the second time they went on this damn thing? So, of course, Mr. Bean doesn't realize that this is a two-way mirror. He can't see the people on the other side, but they can see him. And, well, Mr. Bean does Mr. Bean stuff that has no ties whatsoever to the movie. Which is a third of the way through, and we haven't even gotten to the whole purpose of the movie. I thought the purpose was you have a big painting that you have to unveil, and you hired Mr. Bean to make a speech about it. Not him doing amusing stuff in the cellular joint. Okay, as amusing as Mr. Bean is, this has nothing to do with the movie. So the painting is here, and guess who managed to fuck that up? $50 says, it rhymes with a Tister Peen. I don't know who that could be. Oh, of course, it's Mr. Bean, if you didn't figure that out already. So what does he do? He does what Mr. Bean tends to do. Make the situation even worse. He hides the painting so he can try and fix the head, which he clearly doesn't fix.
Who let them alone with the picture? I say me. And they say we have fire. I say fire. No. Then they say firing is not enough. Let's prosecute for negligence.
Trying to remember the name of that workout person, because he seems related to that workout person that I'm referring to. You're becoming mighty, or something like that. I can't remember the name, but in any case, he sounds like him. What does Mr. Bean do? He drew a fucking head on there, and it doesn't even come close. You gotta be shitting me. Well, you're looking at 10 to 15 years in the slammer, and that's minimum. Followed by a $500,000 fine and maybe parole if need be. He, of course, is losing it because he's already losing his family to this wackadoo of a psychopath.
Good. Neither do I.
So guess what they do? The opposite of what they're used to doing. Gee, there's a cliche right there. Yeah, situation gets worse, so how do we make the situation better? By drinking our troubles away. The oldest cliche in the movie books. Pathetic. Oh, and what does Mr. Bean do? You got the baseball game on, and he changes the channel. Now, you could have made that screaming goats. Why do you have to flip the channel from a baseball game to goats? Who the hell cares about animals? Well, I'm sure PETA will have something to say about that.
Because you moved into my house, my wife has moved out. Yes, she did. She might have moved out anyway.
The protagonist is complaining about the situation that, oh, this is Mr. Bean's fault. Ever since you came into my life, you've ruined it. And now I'm gonna tear myself away in the sorrow of beer. Yeah, we all know how that unfolds. So what does Mr. Bean do? He decides to make the situation better by sneaking out, pretending to be a burglar, and... Oh, you've got to be fucking kidding me. He puts laxative on the coffee. Okay, this is by far the most brilliant idea he's had. Because guess what the cop's gonna do next? He takes the men's room key and flips it with some other key. That way he will never be able to access the men's room when he has to go take a dump. Because he's gonna drink the coffee, and with the laxative in it, it's obviously gonna make him go number 2. 3, 2, 1, lift off. Okay, sounds like you're having a constipation. Might I recommend some Pepto-Bismol? That does help your diarrhea problems. So after he lures the security guard away, Mr. Bean goes and grabs the painting, and he's obviously gonna fix the problem, and look what happens. Hey, a Burt Reynolds cameo!
I don't know the difference between a Picasso and a car crash.
Which means you have absolutely no point of being in this movie whatsoever, Burt Reynolds, but we appreciate your cameo appearance and taking your $500,000 with you for this one fucking scene you probably got. So they unveil the painting.
Welcome home.
Welcome home? You mean he was here before? Dramatic entrance. And now, the starting lineup for your pathetic painting! That looks as good as new. Or so you believe it to be good as new. But wait till you figure out why it's good as new.
Whatever you did, you're a genius and I love you.
It's a poster.
It's a fucking poster. Okay, how the fuck did he manage to have a poster ready for this situation? And I bet you're wondering what happened with the real painting. Well, you have to stick around for the ending, which we'll get to right now, because he makes his speech, and then he has to go save the day. Oh, and guess who he has to save? Ew! He stuck the M&M in there! Well, it's chocolate, it's nutty, it's delicious! But why the hell did he have to... Ew! If he puts it in his mouth... I'll tell you where this blood's coming from. Your ass! As there's trauma in the Traumaville. And what does Mr. Bean do on the sideline? He's dancing to the picture of a rib. And how does he save the day, you might ask? He just stands there, watches them, and he's like, no, that... Put that thing away. Amateur, watch how you save a person's life. All you have to do is up, just watch the master. He knows what he's doing. Wait for it. 3, 2, 1. Like fucking magic. And everything's coming to an end. So after saving his life, guess how he saves the daughter's life? Who, by the way, was in a motorcycle accident. He plugs the defibrillator. Haha, sonic hearing. No, seriously, what is you... And there's no God, because there's no fucking way that should fucking happen. How the fuck does a defibrillator man can't go jumping and allows him to revive her through his defibrillated body? How does that make any fucking sense? God, there's nothing that makes sense in this movie.
Doctor, where are you going?
Oh, he's going because... Oh, yeah. He doesn't want to expose himself because then he realizes that this man's going to turn into a Looney Tune. But he reveals himself anyways as Mr. Bean. And divorce awaits the loser. What? Say something! And obviously the dude went his separate ways with the family. Boulevard. He gets to see Boulevard. Hey, Randy Newman! You gotta be kidding me. Hey, how about Randy Newman with "You Got a Friend in Me"? Because this would be the perfect ending to this movie. Which is not over. Now it's over. As he sleeps away, discovering that he's created the greatest adventure ever. And yes, that's the real painting that he took back home with him. Mr. Bean going through his greatest adventure, while the rest of us are like, what's the point of this movie? It's just Mr. Bean doing Mr. Bean stuff for 2 hours. But, be that as it may, it's still a decent movie as it is. So there you go. If you want to see Mr. Bean expanded beyond a 20-minute episode, this is the movie for you. That is if you want to handle all the crazy, non-believable stuff that is Mr. Bean. So there you go. There's Bean the movie. I hope you enjoy it. If you're into Mr. Bean, that is. I'm the CommanderZander. I remember it so that I stand to great down and neither should you.